Serpentious is probably my favorite character, Miss Bum.
Welcome to Lightweight's podcast. My name's Joe. Today's guest, Richard HORVITZ.
I'm always with Brandon. I don't know if you've seen any of our things where we always punch each other. Yeah, that's my favorite thing.
It's my favorite thing.
Brandon said to me, when did we start abusing each other for fun? I said, I don't know, but I love it. He goes, yeah, me too.
The voice of our childhood, Richard HORVITZ, voiced Invader Zim.
Grr, why was there bacon in the soap?
Why was there bacon in the soap?
Moxxie on Helluva Boss.
I love the House of Asmodeus.
I love you more than the brimstone loves the fire.
Billy from Billy and Mandy.
Billy and Mandy, we had a bunch of songs. I want to be the keeper of the reaper. Please make me the keeper of the reaper.
Please vote me the keeper of the reaper. I want to be the keeper of the reaper.
Power Rangers, Skylanders, the list goes on and on. If you know him from something that I didn't mention, let me know down below.
Ay.
And that's kicking. Ay.
He also voiced one of my favorite shows, Angry Beavers.
Beaver fever. Beaver fever. How? Get down with your bad selves.
Got the beaver fever. Beaver fever. Oh, yeah.
We talk about voice acting, the industry, how he's been able to maintain a career this long in Hollywood, some incredible fun facts about Hazbin Hotel, Helluva Boss. He's the voice director of both shows.
We will have Brandon singing shortly.
Wow.
Yeah. We have some people coming up that are fans of the show that will surprise you.
In season 2 of Hazbin?
In season 2 of Hazbin.
So give this video a like, hit the subscribe button, and leave a comment down below because we have some very special guests coming up. In the next episode is Jim Cummings, voice actor of Winnie the Pooh, Tigger, and some incredible actors from Hazbin Hotel and Helluva Boss. So without further ado, Richard HORVITZ. What does it mean to you to fold in another character into your pantheon of classics? When do you realize that what you're creating is being put into that timeless category that's going to live forever?
I don't know that I know it at the time. What I do know is that when we're playing in the booth, and that's what I call it, a play date, right? Because we're just having fun. I know that when we're having fun and everyone's laughing and we're enjoying it and you hear the amazing music involved, you get a sense that, yeah, this is something special.
You mentioned the music being involved. At what point do you generally do the voice? Isn't it normally in the beginning, like before production?
Oh, yeah. Well, it depends. Like, at Cartoon Network, we would have storyboards and we would see what the animation was going to be. But it was still pretty much free range when we would record. We'd still have freedom to improv, and I did a lot of improvising as Billy and Mandy. But with Helluva Boss or Hazbin, we basically record the whole thing. And that takes us a while because our cast is all over the country, some all over the world, some are in Europe, most are in New York, especially on Hazbin. And then we'll have a day that's just, we'll dedicate to music. But sometimes, because everyone's schedule is so ridiculous these days, we'll do recording of the dialogue and a song on the same day. So that's a fun day. It's a long day, but it's fun.
Is it rare for a show to give you the creative freedom to do an improv?
Not really. It's not too rare. I think that particularly people that hire me, they know that I'm an improviser, and I have since I was young. And so they know I'm going to do that. Like, perfect example is Brandon. Brandon is a huge improviser. And we will always say, can we get one as written and then do whatever you want? And a lot of the times, what Brandon has come up with is often funnier in certain parts, and we'll use that. We'll mix and match them. So it's not unusual because it's a creative endeavor on everyone's part, especially when you work with amazing creators like Vivienne Medrano or Jonan Vasquez or Maxwell Adams or Mitch Schauer and any of the creators that I've worked with. They want that. They want that freedom of play that you bring to the show. So it's not too unusual.
And when you do the improv, the animation is created right after because...
Yes. Yeah. So like I was saying, on Cartoon Network, the storyboards were already drawn, but we weren't married to them. We could always adjust them. So if we did something that was funny for improv, then they'd put that in the show.
You're a legend in the scene.
I'm blushing. You until I'm blushing.
How did it work going from network to network? Were you contracted to only do one?
No. So when you work on these shows, believe it or not, you're not under you're not under contract for like the whole series. It's like every time you come in, you sign a new contract. So it's like a day contract for each episode. So there's no exclusivity which networks you can work for.
So in theory, you could be replaced mid-show?
Yes. In theory, yes. And it's not just a theory. I haven't I was doing a show called Squirrel Boy. And it came down to me and Rob Paulson for the character of Rodney. They hired me. I did like the first 3 or 4 episodes. And they go, well, I think we're going to go with Rob. So they replaced me with Rob. And they had Rob, I guess, like dub over those episodes or what. I'm not sure what happened. But then they came back to me and said, no, we decided to go back to you. So it happens all the time. And when that happens, there's never any hard feelings between the at least in my experience. Rob Paulson and I are really good friends. Billy West and I are very dear friends, and he did the pilot of Invader Zim. And then I came in and voiced over the pilot, and that I became Zim.
Invader Zim started with a 3D movie, correct?
No, the pilot was actually we did have 3D, and that's why our show was the most expensive show that Nickelodeon had ever done. If I told you the price, it would be ridiculous. I'm not even remembering, but it was astronomical compared to the things we had done on other shows like Angry Beavers and stuff. But when our ratings were like in the tank, the first thing that got cut was our 3D department.
Oh.
Because that's expensive.
Because that was a whole department. So they sold those glasses where people could watch at home?
Oh, yes. They did have that. That was a special episode. Yeah. Only for the 3D parts of it, like in the space stuff. It was like when the ships were flying through space. So yeah, I guess that was true. I'd forgotten about that. Good memory.
With you being the title character on that show, was that crazy for a network to put that much belief into you?
It's funny how the whole thing went down, to be honest with you. I was already on Angry Beavers, and so I'd done already 105 episodes or 111 episodes or something like that of Angry Beavers. And when they were doing Invader Zim, they were casting Invader Zim, Jonah Vasquez, the creator, was a fan of mine. He had grown up, watching a lot of my shows, but predominantly Power Rangers as Alpha 5. And he knew he wanted me. But the network said, well, he's already doing Angry Beavers, so we don't want him on both shows at the same time. And then our show, Angry Beavers, ended, and they hadn't released the pilot yet. It hadn't even been sent to New York. And so I saw Jonah in basically the coffee room at Nickelodeon, and he goes, hey, is your show over now, right? And yeah, we just finished it. He goes, hey, come with me. And we went into the studio, and I dubbed over about 2 or 3. I dubbed over the lunchroom scene. I dubbed over the classroom scene. And he goes, great. And they pitched it a little bit with that kind of mechanical sound. And then they sent it off to New York and said, this is our cast. And they said, great. And that's how I became Zim.
That's Hollywood, baby.
That's Hollywood.
That's so cool.
Yeah, it was fun.
The Nickelodeon office, that's where all the voiceovers were done generally?
Yes.
For the network?
So in the beginning, I was there when they opened the studio in Burbank. I was there. In fact, they had brought Nick Mackay, who played Norbert Beaver, and myself in to pretend that we were recording an episode when they opened, like it was a Nickelodeon open house. Look at our new studios. Prior to that, all the production companies were housed in different areas. Like, so Angry Beavers was a Gunther Wall production originally. And so we had moved from basically the West Valley to basically North Hollywood, where the old May Company was. That's where our offices were. And once they built the studio, then we were all housed within the studio. And so we would record outside of that studio. But one of the main reasons for building the studio was that we could all record in the studio.
They just wanted to keep it all in the family?
Oh, yeah. Inevitably, you want to keep it all in the family. Prior to SpongeBob, honestly, most of the animation that was being done by outside companies. Like Klasky Chupo was doing Rugrats, and Gunther Wall was doing Angry Beavers, and Klasky did a bunch of them. They did, Rocket Power, and they did Cat Dog, I think. Or Cat Dog? Yeah, I don't think Cat Dog. I don't know which company that was. But their first one that was all theirs was SpongeBob. And so SpongeBob is still going strong. That was their juggernaut. And all the remodeling they've done to the studio, and they built new parking garages, everything. That's the studio that SpongeBob built.
Wow.
Yeah.
Take me back to the Angry Beavers release day.
Oh, boy. The release date. Oh, I remember it well. It was right after the Kids' Choice Awards, 1995 or 6, maybe. 5 or 6. I can't remember. It's either 1995 or 96. I think it might have been 96. And I had attended the Kids' Choice Awards, and it was when the Kids' Choice Awards were fairly new. And it was fun. And that was the big promotion that was like, stay tuned for a new Nickelodeon series, The Angry Beavers. And I was at the after party, and they were playing it on the screen, and that's the first time I saw it. And then it was on, I believe, Saturday mornings. I think it was somewhere in there.
What was the production schedule like for a show like that back then?
So it's crazy. What most people don't realize is that animation, like one episode, can take up to 9 months to be done. And so that's why you kind of have multiple crews working on different episodes at a time, so that when you release the series, you have all the series being delivered, all the episodes being delivered, one right after the other. So the production schedule was... it's different with each production, but for the most part, we do the animation, then they do the storyboarding, and then the storyboarding. After the storyboarding's done, we go to work on backgrounds and props and all that stuff. And then as we get the film back, we do retakes. And sometimes the retakes require new dialogue. So we'll do an ADR session, or we'll do a pickup session. And then... once they get that back, all the coloring is done and everything is, rendered, and it's ready to release. So, but it can take up to 9 months. People get like really, almost like impatient when it takes us so long to get a Helluva Boss episode out. But I don't think people realize is you can't compare it to studio animation, except for quality. Quality is better than some of the studio animation I've ever seen. But as far as the time it takes us to get an episode out, that's because we're an independent company. Spindle Horse is independent, and so what Vivienne has created is amazing. It's amazing what she's done, and so it takes us a little bit longer because we have one crew working on one full episode just to get a full episode out, versus a network which could have 3 or 4 crews working on 3 or 4 episodes at a time.
When you first heard of what Vivienne was doing, what did you think of that?
So, to be honest with you, I didn't know anything about Vivienne. I didn't really know anything about any of the, the indie animation going on on YouTube. But a lot of my friends had mentioned it to me, and then I had heard that Vivienne had grown up as a fan of my shows, Billy and Mandy and Invader Zim, and she had also worked with Maxwell Adams on one of his projects. And so I think that's how we got connected. And I think she contacted my agent, and my agent said, I will talk to Richard about it. And at first, my instinct was, YouTube for a series, I don't know. I've been doing networking cable my whole career. Do I want to do YouTube? But when I saw the script and I met Vivienne, I was like, oh yeah, I'm on board. This is someone who knows where they're going and someone who knows their talent and their worth, and I wanted to be a part of that. I was lucky because I asked Vivienne if I could voice direct, and she said yes. And so I voice direct both shows. I voice direct Helluva Boss and Hazbin, and I'm also Moxxie on Helluva Boss. And so also I'm a huge Broadway nerd. I just love Broadway musicals. It's just in my soul. It's what I actually had started out to do. I started out in musical theater. And because I started working in TV and film at a very young age, I never made it to Broadway. But everyone that is on Hazbin and Helluva Boss are like these, Broadway luminaries, like Alex Brightman, and the list goes on and on. So,
was the musical aspect the most intriguing part to you when you first saw the script?
For Hazbin, yes. For Helluva Boss, I didn't know what to expect other than I liked the script, and I saw that there was the song "Oh Millie" in it. And when we did the pilot, we hadn't hired Vivienne Williams yet. At that time, we had Erica Limbeck doing the voice of Millie and Luna. And so she and I do the song. I think eventually we might try to re-record it with me and Vivienne, my Millie, singing that song.
For voice directing,
Yes.
do you go through the script with Viv before the actors come into the booth?
No, I wish we did.
Oh, it's all done on the
no,
spot?
everything. I mean, this is the thing. It's like, well, you've worked with Brandon, right?
Of course.
So Brandon, as you know, does everything on the fly. There's like rarely any time to memorize lines or even to, get a script. Helluva Boss and Hazbin have fully written scripts that are amazing. People like Adam Nyland writing, and Vivienne and Brandon. However, I often don't get the script until like I don't know, maybe the night before, and I'll often get like half the season worth of scripts. So oftentimes I'm going into the studio, reading, going in early just to read through it and to make sure I don't miss any cues. We need action here, and we need effort here, and that sort of thing. And so it's kind of like guerrilla recording, but I love it. It's fun because the thing is that we never lose sight of the fact that it's all about our story and our play and our fun. And as a result, there's no egos involved, which is rare. There's no egos involved. We are all working to make the best, funniest take that we can. And luckily, Vivienne and I work really super well together. Super well. Our takes, what we decide is the circle take for a take, is always in sync.
What does circle take mean?
It means, let's say one of the actors does a take, like a full pass of lines 1 through 10, and we'll go, okay, line 1, I love take 1 on that. Oh, me too, like take 1. Sometimes we'll go like, well, what if we do this? And we'll change it. Sometimes I'll go, oh, I have an idea. What if he says this here? Yes, let's do that. So it's a real joint effort. It's really a collaborative effort, and that's what I love about it. I mean, I've been on some projects years ago that it was, no, do it this way. We're tight on budget. We're tight on time. This is what we're going to do. I never feel pressured for time when we're working on Helluva or Hazbin.
What are you listening for when you're vocal directing?
I'm listening for truthfulness, like what feels real. I'm listening for play and fun. If you're having fun, we're having fun. It's just the way it is. Like when I was doing Invader Zim, when we were doing Invader Zim, that cast was so tight and so knew how everyone else thought that we were enjoying it. And yet when you're doing that, you have no concept of how the outside world is going to perceive it. And yet you realize that our play together, our fun, our laughing at each other is what the audience responded to. It's the same with Hazbin and Helluva Boss, is that we're playing and enjoying it and having fun. And what I'm listening for is that you're having fun and that it's truthful. And there are times when I think, like from a technical point of view, I'm also listening for articulation. If I think something is mushy or muddy, we'll redo it. And there's never a time, ever, where Vivienne doesn't go, yeah, let's try that. Let's do that, Sometimes when I listen to Billy and Mandy, to the old episodes, there are times when I cringe when I go, I didn't really say that very clearly. I don't really know what I'm saying there because I'm so much of Billy was like, see, what are you doing there? It's like, well, I don't know. I don't know what I just said, but I guess they used it.
So when you were doing Billy and Mandy,
yes,
was there a vocal director in there as well, coaching you?
Yes. A wonderful vocal director by the name of Chris Zimmerman, dear friend of mine, and she was great. She was awesome. She would always make sure that we were covered.
When you get these shows like Billy and Mandy, Invader Zim, are you aware of how big and how long and what kind of life these characters are going to have?
Not really. You get to a certain age, of which I've been doing voiceover for over 30 years, but I've been an actor for almost 50 years, and I'm only 30, which is weird. How does that work? Where you don't, people start to call you like iconic or legendary, which is always flattering. But when you're working at it, you're just going to the next job. And eventually you've stockpiled, over 300 jobs. And one of those shows usually is something that someone remembers from their childhood. And so I think that when I'm going along doing it, I don't know the longevity of the character. I just know that someone was going to remember this. In fact, I even knew at the beginning of when I started my voiceover career that one day someone who had grown up watching my shows would be in a position of power where they wanted to work with me. And that's proven to be true on multiple occasions. Oftentimes, there were people that were my contemporaries who were watching the shows I was doing. Tim Schafer is a perfect example of someone. He's the one who created Psychonauts, and he was a fan of Zim, and so I knew that Tim was a fan, and that's one of the reasons why Tim wanted to work with me. But you have no way of knowing that something that's going to last. Like I mentioned Squirrel Boy earlier. That went one season. It had a great cast. It was Pamela Adlon. It was Kurtwood Smith. Only did one season and disappeared. I thought that would have gone on. So who am I? What do I know?
What does the script look like for a video game versus a television show?
Wow, it's like night and day. With a animated show, you're getting the full script, the full story, and everything. But with a video game script, you're just getting different levels, and the levels aren't necessarily linear. It's not like this is level 1, this is level 2. It's just whatever level they're working on, and this is where you are in the story.
Is that normally the full day? Like you're doing level 1?
So what it is like if you see an animation script, it is if you see an animation script, it is written like a television script, a film script. But if you see a video game script, it's just lines.
Because there's so many side quests.
Yes, side quests, and it basically looks like an Excel sheet. That's what it is an Excel sheet. And luckily, I've worked with great directors like Chris Brown, who is the director of Psychonauts. She is amazing, because she'll make sure that there's truthfulness, and she'll let me know what's going on. And Tim is often there, and he can tell the story. And nothing excites me more than a creator that is excited about their own story, because then I want to play.
What's the timeline look like on a video game from when you're acting to when it comes out?
Oh, wow. It depends on the video game, but it's a long process. I think the first Psychonauts, we took, that had to have been maybe over a year, because it started and stopped, and then we rewrote levels. So it takes takes years. I was just in what was I just in? Jedi Survivor. I played the character of Turgle, and I only had like a very brief character, and it turned out to be like an internet meme. Turgle was like huge, but that game took like 3 to 5 years to from conception to being released. 5 years, I would say, is a pretty good guesstimation.
How do the fans of your games work compared to the show's work?
Oh, wow, that's interesting. That's a good question. I think that because I have a distinctive voice, and you always know it's me in characters, because, this is my voice. I think they're the same. I think that a lot of people that watch my shows are the same ones that play my games, and they're always pleasantly surprised to hear me show up in a video game, I did a lot of Ratchet and Clank. One of my favorite. In fact, when Psychonauts 2 came out, Ratchet and Clank Rift in Time, I think it was, came out at the same time. And they were both up for Game of the Year. Neither one, unfortunately, but would have been nice.
Because when you're playing the video game, you're really interacting with the character. Sometimes you are the character.
Yeah.
So you really get to spend that quality time with you.
Yeah.
Which is pretty cool.
I think the key to acting in a video game is, unless you're doing like a little kid's video game, like Little Critter or something like those old games, you always have to remember that you're not talking to the player. Because in the early days, you were talking to the player. It was always like, wow, I wonder what that door is. That was obvious clues. But now you watch video games, and you're basically shooting movies, especially with the mocap. You're shooting a movie.
Have you done mocap?
Yeah, I was mocap on Survivor. Jedi Survivor was mocap. Yeah.
How do you
I had to jump like Turgle as a frog man. I like it. I like it a lot. The suit that you wear can be somewhat cumbersome. but you get used to it. And you also are wearing like this giant like helmet with a camera on it, and so that's like, but you get used to it.
Are they using your audio too while you're doing that?
Yeah, I mean they're using my audio, especially on the set. But then when it goes to gameplay, that's done in your booth. That's done. I say in your booth because, most of this we did during COVID, so I was recording everything. I still record mostly everything from home.
And then you just send over the files.
They'll record on their end, so they'll use like some sort of a software like Source Connect that they can get dry tracks, so they get it really clean and clear. When we were doing Psychonauts, because we were in the middle of that when COVID hit and we had a lot to do, I was recording in my booth and it was my tracks. So then I would send my tracks over to Double Fine and they would mix it and get it ready. So I had to make sure I had no processing on it or anything so that they could do what they want to manipulate it.
How much of Invader Zim had to be scrapped or rewritten because it was too dark?
Not a lot.
No?
Not a lot. Certainly if anything was dark, Dark Harvest, we're stealing organs. Bestest friend when we pull out Keith's eyeballs. So that was always a concern on the part of the network. It was never a concern on our part. The only thing that I remember for certain that they wanted us to re-record was we couldn't say the underworld. They didn't want us to say the underworld. And so we had to re-record it. And I think what Jonan came up with was funnier than what we had written. He called it the place beneath the overworld. Where are you from? The place beneath the overworld, which I think is clever. So those moments I don't mind. The irony is that meanwhile I was doing Billy and Mandy at the other network, and we had no problem saying the underworld. That's where Grimm was from. And of course now the more irony is that I'm on a show that takes place in hell. So that's a misunderstood thing about, I think, Hazbin and Helluva Boss also, is that people that don't know the show think it's only just about hell, sex, and profanity. But it's not. Both Hazbin and Helluva Boss, Helluva Boss in particular is about relationships. It's about relationships and love in hell, because, love can be hell. It's the relationship between, obviously, Blitz and Stolas. It's the relationship between Moxxie and Millie. It's the relationship between Blitz and Luna, and I could go on and on. Or Fizzarali and Ozzy. We just have, it's all relationship-based. And yes, we have some murdering in there. I mean, that is the general conceit. But Hazbin is about redemption. So that's why I love these stories. But the people that misunderstand our show think that it's just all, sex, profanity, and violence, which is not true.
When you're talking with your friends who have been in the industry since Angry Beavers time even,
yeah,
are you telling them about Hazbin and Helluva, and what is their reaction to how the show is?
So originally, their reaction was similar to mine. You're doing a YouTube show? YouTube? Really? I'm like, yeah. And now that they've seen that, these shows get, Viv's show gets, Helluva Boss gets 12 million views overnight.
Crazy.
Overnight, which is more than you get on cable or any of the other things that everyone's working on in network or whatever. We have a huge following. Now, especially after Hazbin came out on Amazon, now every one of my friends wants to be on that show. They all want to be on it. And they've told me so. And we have some people coming up that are fans of the show that will surprise you.
In season 2 of Hazbin?
In season 2 of Hazbin. Yeah. Yep. And the current season, we're still working on season 3 of Helluva Boss. There's some surprise voice actors that you're like, wow.
On Hazbin, without leaking, where are you in the production of it?
So we just wrapped on recording of season 2. And we were picked up by Amazon for season 3 and 4. So,
insane.
It's insane.
That's how many seasons Viv wanted it to be, right? 4?
Yeah. Viv, in both stories, Vivienne knows exactly where the shows begin and end. She knows exactly where they want to go.
That's pretty rare, right?
It's rare. The thing is with streaming, because I've pitched to networks, to streaming services, they want to know where it's going to go. They want to have an ending. And the reason for that is this. When you go in to pitch for a streaming service, Netflix, Amazon, Hulu, it doesn't matter, they want to hear your first 3 seasons. from the beginning to the end of the first 3 seasons, and they want to know how season 1 ends. And the reason for this is because through their research, they discovered that if someone's going to watch a show that they haven't watched before, they will not commit to more than 3 seasons if they have to catch up. So if you like, you're like, you know, SpongeBob's been on for 20. They just had their 25th anniversary, I think. That would never make it in streaming today if you came to them and said, oh, yeah, we're going to go 25 years. No, you got to give us, we'll give you 3 years. Case in point is I did a show called Skylanders Academy for Netflix that was doing well, and we got to the end of the 3rd season with unanswered questions, and they just pulled the plug.
Why was that?
I don't know.
Something like that is never off the table to continue it, though.
You know, I find it very difficult in streaming services for them to bring it back.
Why is that?
Well, I'll tell you. The honest to goodness truth is the following. When I was growing up, we were growing up with the characters we were watching because we had a season. So if you take like the Brady Bunch, for example, the Brady Bunch started out in 1968, 69, and they were this big. And you would have to wait a full year after that season to come back, and you'd see how much they had grown, how old the thing had changed. So you couldn't wait to see what happens the next season. But the way streaming works is you binge watch the whole season. I binge watched the entire season of Cobra Kai 2 days ago. Boom, in my head and gone, where you're filling it with another show. I mean, if you think about it, when I was younger, we were all having a collective experience. We were all watching the same shows on the same 3 networks. And so we were talking about it. But now someone will say, hey, have you seen the Decameron yet? No. What's that on? I don't know. I got to look it up. Oh, yeah, it's on Netflix. Yeah, it's good. Oh, but have you seen Drops of God? No. There's just so much. There's just so much content that taking it in and trying to follow a show for, 26 episodes like it used to be doesn't exist. So we don't really bring him back. What's weird is that we did bring back Invader Zim for the Enter the Florpus movie, but that ended up on Netflix. It wasn't even aired ever on Nickelodeon, even though I recorded it for Nickelodeon. To be honest with you, financially, it would have been better for me if it had been just on Nickelodeon, because the residuals would have been much better than what you get on streaming.
There's residuals for animated shows on networks?
Oh, yes.
But not on streaming.
There is, but here's the thing. One of the things with streaming is you can't keep track of the downloads. You can't.
Because that's all internal and locked, and they don't share it.
It's locked, and they don't share it, and they're down. If you could watch, like I'm gonna watch Invader Zim again, and that'll be like 10 downloads just from you. But we're not privy to that information. The other thing is that one of the deals in the contract is when they release something new, they can air that movie, like Florpus, for the full first month, residual free. Then after that, it's residuals. But here's a question for you. If you haven't seen a show that you love in 20 years, when do you think you're going to watch it? The first month. So that's when you would be getting the biggest payday.
Right.
So
I just went back and watched Angry Beavers.
yes.
Still remember the theme song 20 years later.
Yeah, that was a great theme song, and that was like kind of a last minute thing too, putting that opening credit sequence together.
Last minute how?
In that the show had been recorded and it was back from animation, was ready to be released, but we needed a title sequence, and so they had to throw together a title sequence, and that's what Mitch Schauer and Mike Gerard put together, and we had the song by Charlie, and it was amazing.
It was a pretty long one. What determined the length of those?
What determined the length of those? That's a good question. I think it was just what they wanted to do. It depends on if you want more time for your storytelling or more time for. That's one of the beauties, like also about working with Vivienne, is that you'll notice that sometimes we have a 30-minute episode, sometimes we have a 20-minute episode, sometimes we have a 19-minute episode. It's because we're not constrained to that. We're a little more constrained to that on Amazon But even on Amazon, they'll go, well, the reason we're constrained is because of money. It's expensive. Every, minute of animation that you add is not cheap. So that's kind of why we keep it tight.
When Viv was on this podcast, she mentioned that there's some shots that are more expensive because you have like a 3D angle.
Absolutely.
Did Angry Beavers have stuff like that? Did Invader Zim have stuff like that?
Invader Zim, yes. Invader Zim, like I said, our 3D department, you would see those shots when we're in space, and that like planet jackers. Those were amazing. Those are not cheap. And that's why I was saying Invader Zim was the most expensive animated show Nickelodeon had ever done. One of the reasons why we were canceled, by the way. But good example that Viv's talking about is the fight sequences in like Helluva Boss. In the the song number Moxxie's Bad Trip in Truth Seekers, which also has Brandon, not Brandon singing, but we will have Brandon singing shortly.
Wow.
Yeah.
Is that in an episode?
In an episode.
Okay.
Yeah. So the big shots in Angry Beavers, there were some. Yeah, like there was the football episode with the Coliseum where the big blimp comes over. Those weren't cheap. Obviously, the more background you have, the more, the more movement you have, and it's just those are expensive shots because it takes a big crew to do all that between the background and the props and everything else.
Will there be a Moxxie focused short in the works? I
don't know. I know that Moxxie is in most of them. Even in the first one, Moxxie comes in when the sisters are on the couch and just says, which I like. I like those moments. I think that that what Vivienne is doing is making sure that everyone gets their time on the show. It's definitely an ensemble, and so for that reason, we were very Blitz and Stolas heavy for a long time on Helluva Boss, and I think that's the way Viv likes to work to tell her stories. And then I think it's actually quite brilliant because if you read any of the comments, like, when are we going to get more Luna? When are we going to get Millie's backstory? Just be patient. Just be patient. Because you're asking, we're already thinking it. It's just how we deliver it. And that's what's brilliant about Vivienne's style of working.
Is it difficult for you to vocal direct and do Moxxie at the same time?
No. In fact, it's easier because I know the stories backwards and forwards by the time I go into the booth. I know what's happening. I know my stories. I already know how everyone's recorded their lines, the takes we've taken. And when I'm in the booth, Vivienne's directing me. And it's really easy. And I don't think I've ever taken longer than 30 minutes max to do my scenes. Just boom, I knock them out. I know what we're doing. Brandon's like that. Brandon is very quick also. It's sometimes we got to bring him back because we're going to be really long in animation if we do everything. But everyone that gets in there is boom, spot on, fast, and amazing. In fact, people like Bryce, who plays Stolas. Bryce comes in and he's just done he was doing Little Shop of Horrors off Broadway, and this is a guy who had, when we first started working with him, had just had a new baby. He was doing a Broadway show. He had to take the train home immediately right after, the show let out at 10. He had to catch the last train back to New Jersey. And he would come in so tired. And yet, when we recorded, he knew his songs backwards and forwards. If he didn't know about a song, or it was the first time he was hearing it, he could pick it up. And that amazes me. I mean, working with people like Erica Henningsen and, Bryce Pinkham, as I said, and Alex Brightman and James Eigelhart, it's like you understand why they're huge in Broadway, because they're just, boom, they can sing that song on the drop of a dime. Yeah, I can sing that song. I've seen Erica Henningsen sing Happy Day in Hell like 10 times just off the cuff. Pitch perfect. Words remembered. Wow. I wish I could do that. I can do it, but not like them.
When you're vocal directing with Alex Brightman, say, he's in New York. Are you in New York as well?
So in this, I'm trying to think if we did it with Hazbin. I know we did it with Helluva. Yes, we did it with Hazbin. We did it with both. Vivienne and I try to take a trip to New York every season to spend a week there because it's easier just to get everyone in and just spend our days back to back doing 3 actors a day if we can. And then at night we go to shows and we go out to dinner and I visit my family. My son lives in Brooklyn and it's a great trip. It's a fun trip. And, it's great because I'm working while I'm there. So it's not like it's costing me a fortune to work and, live and work in New York. So yes, when we're in New York, we're with them. But when we still have the second half of the season to go, we need pickups, we're on Zoom.
And you're just watching, say, hey, try this?
Yeah. So it's be the same as if I was in person with them. I'm still, instead of being behind a glass, I'm behind a Zoom screen. And there's no delay. And they're being recorded in the studio in New York. So I know I'm getting good tracks. Oftentimes, if I need to hear something back, they can play it back for me. What's also great is if we have songs that day, Andrew Underberg, who's partners with Sam Haft, they're the songwriters, they oftentimes are in the studio directing them from the booth. They're in the booth. Andrew in particular, because Andrew lives in New York, but Sam is in L.A.
They just won an award recently, no? Or it went platinum or something?
Yeah, they went platinum on the playlist of Hazbin.
That's crazy.
It is crazy. Yeah, I mean, those songs are so good. I think, like most people, my favorite is Loser Baby. Working with Keith David. Oh, my gosh. I created a word that I use for Keith. It's called growlvitas.
Growlvitas.
Yeah, because just meeting Keith, if you've never met him, he's just has so much gravitas. But when you put him in the husk role, he's like, here. So I go, we need more growlvitas. Now, Angel, right? I call it growlvitas.
When you're reading with people, are you trying to recreate?
Yes, I'm trying to do their voices.
Oh, you are?
Yeah, I do their voices for them. And sometimes it cracks up Erica Henningsen or it cracks up Christina Albato. They laugh. Alex also, because I will often do, like, Sir Pentious is probably my favorite character.
Miss Bum, would you like to do sex with me?
It's like my favorite moment. I just love those characters. And I love his Adam is awesome. Hell is forever, whether you like it or not, right? And he's so good. And
Miss Bum, Cherry, I love you.
And I'll just do that if I'm doing a scene with, one of the other actors, and so I love to do that.
When you're doing scenes with Moxxie and Millie, that's cool because you can.
Yeah.
Those are like really testing it out.
Absolutely. Millie and Moxxie, I'm reading usually off camera. In the old days, and I still want to recommend that we do this at some point if it's feasible. If we can do this, it would be great. Is that we would all be in the booth together and we would record what's called radio play fashion.
And is everyone in a different corner where the mics aren't bleeding?
We're all next to each other and usually next to each other, but we can turn off your mic when you're not talking. But we don't bleed because that's what you learn is that you don't talk while the other person's talking. However, when we were doing Angry Beavers, we broke that rule. So when you listen to Angry Beavers, you'll often hear me talking over Norb and Norb talking over me. And Mitch Schauer, the creator, wanted that because that's how brothers are. They cut each other off, and so that's what he wanted. And so we're one of the first shows to ever talk over the other characters when they're on mic.
Were you guys sharing a mic?
Nope.
Two different mics.
Two different mics, both open. Now, when I was doing Invader Zim, because I was so loud and yelly and screamy, they put me in my own booth. So I was in a separate, isolated booth where I could see them all, but I was in my own solo booth.
Do you have any quotes from Zim that really stick out to you that you
Yes,
loved?
my all-time favorite is, Grr, why was there bacon in the soap? I just love that because Grr goes, I made it myself, which is like such, not an answer, but it's so Grr. And there's a bunch of them, like that one. I liked, Grr, what's the G stand for? And he goes, I don't know. And I say, is it supposed to be stupid? It's not stupid. It's advanced. Yes, it fooled even me. So those moments are I like. I also like Jonan's favorite that Jonan says that transferred into Zim when he directed me. Excellent work, me. And then in the in the movie, in Enter the Florpus, there's a scene where, towards the end, Zim is chasing Dib as he's running over the planets. And Zim says, "You're ugly when you lie, Dib." And he goes, "I'm not lying." And that was where it ended. And then just in improv, I said, "Then why are you ugly?" I also love the, "Who are you? Who are you?" And I love the, "What? What? What?" It just, those moments just crack me up.
Was there a difference in recording from the show versus the movie?
You know, it's funny you said that. My concern was that my voice wasn't going to be the same as it was 20 years earlier.
Do you think that it changed?
I think it did, yeah. I think that 20 years on from a lot of the rougher characters that I do maybe makes my voice just a little bit lower and a little bit more hoarse or raspy. But when we got in there and I heard it and we were all playing together again, it was like we'd been together the day before. Some of us hadn't recorded together most of us hadn't recorded together in 20 years. Ricky and I, on the other hand, who plays Gurr, he and I have maintained our friendship from that day onward. We've traveled to conventions nonstop. We're going to be in San Antonio together next weekend at Pure Joy Toys, and Jonan is this very weekend, as a matter of fact, in San Jose. I'm with Jonan, Eric Trueheart, the writer, and Ricky at GalaxyCon in San Jose, and Ricky and I we had the joy of getting to see the fruits of our labors the fruit of our labor because we got to meet the fans, and we went for years. I mean, at one point we were doing like 15 conventions a year.
Wow.
Yeah, this year, because of Helluva Boss, I think last year I did 14. This year I'm in the middle of another 13 to go, and I've already done 10. So it's enjoyable, though. I really enjoy it. Whoop, sorry about that.
Do you ever get anyone dressing up as the Green Grape?
Oh, funny you should ask. No.
Not yet.
No, not yet.
There's going to be one.
The Green Grape, yeah, that was a fun gig. That was fun. Few people know that I was one of the Fruit of the Loom guys.
That's pretty iconic.
It was. I replaced this one guy that was playing him, and then he went off to do something else, and so I came in, and it was the other guys had been doing it for like 4 years.
They were the same people?
Same people for the last 4 years.
Wow.
And then I came in and I did a 3-year contract, I think, for them, which was great because I only had to do 2 commercials a year.
Yeah.
And but they were fun. They were epic commercials. They were like 3-day shoots.
And Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. Were you in the suit of Alpha?
No. In fact, it was 2 different women who played Alpha. And as a result, if you ever looked at Alpha, you could see that Alpha had hips, right? It had curves. And so I remember during an ADR session, our producer says, we need some sort of thing for when Alpha walks and crosses the room. And my first idea was like, it was like kind of like Charo. Hoochie coochie, hoochie coochie, right? But no, I can't do hoochie coochie. And then that's how we came up with ay 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 ay.
Were you on set during the tapings?
Never.
You always came in last.
I always came into the booth in post, and I just did my stuff in the. We were in Valencia, and there was a big studio there that they had converted into the Power Ranger studio, the Saban Studios, and we had an area that was just the voiceover booth. And that's where I would always go to. I'd go there probably once a week, and I'd do like 2 episodes a week or 3 episodes because they were already in the can. And then I'd drive back to LA.
Did they have the episode playing and you would get to see
it? Yes, you would do it. Yeah. And I had the easy. So yeah, it's exactly what it was. It's just, we basically dubbed all of our work. It was like, doing anime. I had the easiest job of all of the dubbers because I only had to speak when the lights were on.
Oh.
I didn't have to match lip flaps. So if you're like, Rita, you have to make sure your line is done before it's out. That's why sometimes you can tell the difference in anime versus like domestic animation is because in anime, a lot of times you're trying to get all the lines in before the mouth stops moving. And so that's why it has that kind of rhythm to it. But there are amazing anime voice actors that can make you feel like so natural. It doesn't have that kind of like rushing to get it in for the lip flap. I'll give you an example. Did you ever watch Death Note?
No.
So there's the character of Light, very natural. Like he's acting like Breaking Bad acting, right? But then when like the god, Gimme, I think it is. I think that's what it's. I don't. That's not the correct name of him. Anyway, but when he's talking, he has a lot to say, so he has to make sure he gets it all in there before those lips stop moving. And so you can feel like kind of a more stilted thing because that character's on camera.
When you find out who's coming on Helluva Boss and Hazbin, are you looking up the work they've done?
No.
No. You like being...
Yeah, I like being pleasantly surprised. I'm always like really flattered. Like, I'll give you a perfect example. Darren Criss was on our show, and sweetest guy, super talented. So I was saying, like, oh yeah, well I did this show years ago, and he goes, oh, I know who you are, right? And he was very flattering, very sweet. Then he was interviewed in Rolling Stone magazine for his role in Hazbin. And he mentioned it. He said, and then to show up and be directed by Richard HORVITZ. If you know anything about voiceover, he's kind of a icon for my generation. I was like so flattered when I heard that. It was like, wow. You get to a certain age, you're like, people remember you. I remember watching a Bob Dylan documentary. It was called No Way Home, I think it was called No Way Home. And all these people were talking, all these luminaries and legends of the folks music scene, Joni Mitchell and all these people. And everyone kept going, well, he was the voice of a generation. He was iconic. He was a legend. He was speaking for all of us. And every time they would just keep cutting back to him in this like vacant eye blinking stare. We'd just be like, and then someone else would talk, and they finally cut back to him again to that same shot, and he just looked at the camera and he goes, I didn't start out to be no voice of a generation. I just wrote songs I liked. And that's really what it is. You don't set out to be, you hope you're remembered, I hope I'm in the in memoriam after a very long life, Not currently.
Not in the next few years.
Not in the next few years. But, you hope you make some sort of an impact on people's lives. And I'd like to think that something that I contributed to, to the world was hopefully I made you laugh and entertained you for times. And that's been validated by many people that have come up to me that were suffering with illnesses. And they said, the only time I could laugh was when I watched your show. Or I have had soldiers who have been in combat saying that after a very brutal fight, their parents will have sent them the DVD collection of Invader Zim and they're laughing again. Those things like move me to tears when people tell me those things.
Even watching Angry Beavers in my house now took me back to my living room as a kid.
Yeah.
It was the coolest feeling.
Yeah.
And my wife was like, you watched it? I'm like, I was obsessed with this show.
Yeah. I think that the older we get and the more we deal with life crap, the more we tend to want to go back to a more nostalgic time in our minds because we had no pressures, we had no stress. And the stress and pressure we had was all relative, meaning that person doesn't like me. I like them so much. Why don't they answer my call? Or I didn't do my homework. Oh no, I'm gonna get a C on this. I'm gonna get a D on this, right? But in life, we're going, wow, they're gonna foreclose on my house.
A little more pressure.
A little more pressure. Oh, to go back to a more simple time.
Right. Do you ever go back and watch your old shows?
So because of the Paramount Network, a lot of my early Nickelodeon stuff is on there. And so I'll watch like a couple episodes of Angry Beavers if there's a particular episode that I like and I want to remember it. The only thing that drives me crazy is that Angry Beavers was so long ago, it's not in high def.
Right.
So it's in that, what's it, 4:6 ratio or something? I don't know what's that ratio. I'm not even sure what it is. And so it's hard for me to watch. I will watch an Invader Zim. I'm a fan of Invader Zim, meaning I'm a fan of all my shows, but if I wasn't on Invader Zim, I would still be watching it because I love the random humor. It's the same way I feel about Beavis and Butthead or, Family Guy. I just love those shows. I love random humor. Because it's silly and it's fun. It's just silly. Then any other Billy and Mandy has been on something called Checkered Past because Cartoon Network started re-airing those, Checkered Past, those old shows of like Dexter's and Billy and Mandy. I don't watch them too often, to be honest with you. I do watch all the Helluva Boss and Hazbin because I'm involved on both sides of that show and production and the acting. So I like to see how it comes out. The one thing that I always felt with is like there are voice actors that can come in, do their job, move on to the next job, and they've done their job for the day. I was never like that. I was always, this is like, I want to be a part of this. I want to be more than just the voice. I want to be friends with the production. I want to know everything about it. I want to be included, not just, the voice actor. Billy and Mandy, my wife Kristen and I wrote 2 of the episodes.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, we wrote Bad News Ghouls. And then the second one was Keeper of the Reaper with C.H. Greenblatt. It was our story, but C.H. had the idea of doing it from a guy who just got, Fred Fredberger, just got jury duty. So it's from his POV, which was brilliant. And then he added a song, which I love even more because any show, I don't think I've ever done a show where I do not get to sing. It's just like... Billy and Mandy, we had a bunch of songs. I want to be the keeper of the reaper. Please make me the keeper of the reaper. We also got to do, we did that song, and there was another song. We can't remember the other one. But Invader Zim, we had bow down before the power of Santa, or be crushed by his jolly boots of doom. And then Helluva Boss, it's like singing, which is my favorite part of it.
Is it true, Angry Beavers, you guys would film the episodes in one take?
Yes. Not every one of them.
But a lot of them.
But a lot of them, we would just keep it rolling all the way through because Nick Bakay and I knew each other so well that we knew how the other person was going to respond. We left room for each other. We knew how it was just like, it was one of those marriages made in hell. It was one of those marriages made in heaven because Nick and I just knew each other. I haven't seen Nick since the show ended. I've exchanged messages with him here and there, but he's just recently shown up at a convention, but I don't know that he's doing them on a regular basis.
Were you guys near each other?
We weren't at the same place at the same time. He was in a convention. I wasn't there.
Oh,
yeah.
He did. Okay, got it.
Yeah, he had just done his first. Well, he might have done other conventions, but he doesn't as a general rule. I haven't seen him at a lot of conventions.
For a show like that, is any kind of reunion off the table because the network owns all the rights to it?
No. In fact, Gray Delisle, Greg Eagles, and I are doing a convention called NostalgiaCon in, I think, December. We're all going to be together. The Helluva Boss crew, we always travel together. I'm always with Brandon. I don't know if you've seen any of our things where we always punch each other. Yeah. That's my favorite thing. Brandon said to me one day, he goes, when do we start abusing each other for fun? I said, I don't know, but I love it. He goes, yeah, me too.
When you're creating the character for Daggett,
yep.
Do they give you what kind of personality traits he is, and then you kind of just figure out the tones and how he speaks?
Yeah. So when I did Daggett, it was my first full-time I created the voice character. I mean, I had done Power Rangers, but that was basically dubbing, and it was just basically my robotic voice that was up here, right? But with Daggett, I was a huge fan of, I'm a huge fan of old comedies. I'm a huge fan of the Marx Brothers. I'm a huge fan of the Three Stooges, and I'm a really big fan of Abbott and Costello. And to me, Daggett was kind of like Lou Costello, which if you follow that train of thought, Lou Costello is basically just Tyne Daly from Cagney and Lacey. I am a New York City cop, which is just really Nathan Lane. But for me, it was Lou Costello. It so happened that the creator, Mitch Schauer, was a huge fan of Abbott and Costello, and he loves old monster movies. So he and I were just simpatico, and he knew what I was doing, and that's why he loved me as Daggett. So that part, yes, the things like that was me, because I'm a beaver. But that was based on a real person that shall remain nameless that Mitch wanted me to do. That was Mitch's idea. So it was like, ooh, but they, that was all Nick and I. And Nick was like, degge, wagge, and the messing up of the words, that was Nick.
Do you think the chemistry will still be there today?
Yeah, without a doubt. That never goes away. Just like in the Zim, Ricky and I, me and Andy Berman, who played Dib, same thing, still there.
Are there any side quests that you've done that you really like doing?
Such as like one-offs?
Shows, yeah. Guest appearances,
yeah,
cameos.
I love working on Ratchet and Clank, the video game. Oh, yeah. I'm on Loud House. And the Loud House started out as just, a couple episodes here and there. That's turned into I'm doing a couple characters on the show. So that's a lot of fun. I tend to not mention that, but the Loud House has been really good to me. And I enjoy working on the Loud House a lot. I love the people. I love the crew. I love the writers and the directors, and it's fun.
My old roommate did the theme song.
Really?
In the loud house, in the loud.
What's your old roommate?
Doug Rockwell.
Doug Rockwell, yeah.
He used to be in a punk band in New Jersey.
Yes.
So that's where
Yeah. I've had the pleasure of working with a lot of great songwriters in animation. It's a lot of fun.
Are there any songs that you did that you really, really loved?
Well, I love the House of Osmodius in Helluva Boss. I really love that one. I also loved the song that Brandon and I do in Moxxie's Bad Trip. I love those. I loved Beaver Fever in Angry Beavers. Like, Beaver, Beaver Fever, Beaver Fever, how get down with your bad self. Like, that was me. I get to do all that stuff. So I like those songs. I guess there's been a lot of them, but I guess any song, anytime I get to sing in the show, I really love singing.
I have some fan questions.
Let's hear them.
Can we fire through them?
Yes.
Has Nickelodeon ever approached you about doing an Invader Zim revival?
Not me, but Jonan Vasquez has been approached on several occasions, and I just think that he feels that he's told that story and he wants to. I think he relegates the Invader Zim need to the comic books now. But I would do it in a heartbeat. I wish they would. I think it's a show that it's still making them money and it's still loved by the fans worldwide. So, yeah, I would love to do Invader Zim again. And had I been approached, I would have been yes. But it's not up to me.
Right.
Yeah.
What do you think happens to a character when his story is told?
You mean from beginning to end?
Yeah. Like at the end of the season, how do you keep their journey going and alive?
See, I don't think any story is ever told because it's like I teach voiceover, and one thing I teach people is like when they submit a take and they submit their audition for this character, everyone thinks it has to be this fully fleshed out character, and that's it. That's how it's going to live. But it doesn't. It ain't over because we audition it. It ain't over because we get the call back. It ain't over because we get the pilot. It ain't over because we get the series the first season. It ain't over because we get picked up. It ain't over because we get canceled after a season and a half. And it ain't over because we come back 20 years later to do it all over again. Why? Because we as human beings are never fully fleshed out, right up until our last dying breath. So if you look at a character like Billy started out as a totally normal little kid. Oh, hi, Mandy. Today's Mr. Snuggles' birthday. But by the end of that show, Billy was like, yeah, I like pie. Destroy its all. It was like, wow. He was like, boom, doom, 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 doom. So what happens to him? They go on. I think that the biggest problem with reunions, and I'll never forget this, because it's always lived in my head, and it's funny you ask this because I am keenly aware of making sure this isn't what happens when I come back to do something that I haven't done in years. Is that I grew up watching Get Smart. Get Smart is my all-time favorite series ever. Get Smart, Speed Racer, and Tom Jones from England and the Flip Wilson Show. Those are I lived on those shows. But then after Get Smart went off the air, they came back in the 80s to do a movie and a series. And the movie was The Nude Bomb, and the series was Get Smart Again. And what happened is they were doing it exactly like they did it in 1965, 66, 67, as if nothing had happened in their worlds between 65 and 1981. And so they're doing the same jokes, they're acting the same way as if they hadn't grown or changed in any way. And when we did the Enter the Florpus movie, that's exactly what Jonan was very keenly aware of as well. He said, I don't want to just pay homage to our old tropes. I want it to be completely new. And if you look at that movie, it's just another giant episode of Invader Zim. In fact, I used to go, I am Zim! But in the movie, I say, it is I, Zim! Subtle changes, you know? Because, like my favorite moment that explains everything. You don't need to say, so you've been hiding in a toilet for 20 years? Yes. Yes, I have. And like, like, something that there's this moment where he goes, oh, I hate that place. It's dirty. Gur's the one that likes that place. I do. Yeah, he ate a baby there. He goes, I ate a baby there. And I go, he did. It's just those subtle things that keep it new. It doesn't have to be paying homage to everything that everyone expects.
Right.
In fact, when we did the Florpus movie, you'll notice that the character designs were all different. It was rounder, whereas in the series, they were very sharp edges. And the color was different. It was darker colors in the series. There were lighter, more pastel colors in the movie.
And those are conscious decisions to update it to the time?
Yeah. Conscious decisions. I mean, because, Jonan wants to keep it new for him, too. He doesn't want to go back and tread the same path we've already done. He wants to keep it, new for himself.
Do you feel a big responsibility or some sort of reputation to uphold in all of your projects because you were such an influential part of everyone's childhoods?
Yeah, I think that the obligation I feel is, wow, that's a deep question.
Really
just
deep.
Ask.
YouTube commenter.
Yeah, YouTube. That's a deep question. The obligation I feel is to be respectful to the characters that were created. I remember when Moxxie says, "Are you fucking filming us right now?" The internet blew up with, "Oh my God, Zim just cursed. Zim just cursed." Like, no, Zim did not curse. I do curse. I curse at home a lot. I have as salty a mouth as anybody, right? But that kind of wow, I never thought about that. I think that if Zim could curse, Zim wouldn't curse because he's an alien. They don't curse, and But I feel an obligation to be true to the characters for the fans. Like when they come to the conventions, they want to hear the voices. I want to give that to them because I want to give them an experience. I never want to be the guy that just goes, sign next, ever. And I think anyone that you ever meet who's met me at a convention knows that it's important to me to connect with people to, something where they can remember it. Because I remember as a kid having heroes that I couldn't wait to go see. Like when I grew up in LA, there was this guy named Sheriff John. It was the Sheriff John Lunch Hour Brigade, and he's the one that wrote that song, which you will never have heard of. But it was like, put another candle on the birthday cake. And I used to watch him when I would get home from kindergarten or I'd get home from nursery school, and to meet him would have been like the all-time thing. And people had met him, said he was the nicest, kindest person. So I think that we owe that to. I think we owe that to the fan base because without them, we wouldn't be here. And same with the Helluva Boss and Hazbin world, the Helluverse. They're so kind and generous and committed and sweet and loving and I think that you owe the same respect and regard to them as they have for you.
I think you do such an incredible job at these cons.
Oh, thank you.
I was at Level Up, and I just kept hearing you do every character, and everyone's so excited in your line, and everyone's smiling and filming, and it's a great time.
There's nothing worse than going to a concert and not hearing the song that you have been waiting to hear. That drives me nuts, and especially when they do it in some new arrangement. Like Dylan does that. Bob Dylan just plays something that you don't even recognize. You go, wait, that's like a Rolling Stone? What? And I get it. I get it. He gets bored. But you know what? Who doesn't do that? Springsteen doesn't do that. He knows you want to hear Born to Run as was written. Now, I saw him in a solo performance where it was all acoustic. So he did Born to Run in an acoustic version, which I liked because I hadn't heard that. But it was still the same, rhythm, the same songs. It wasn't as fast. But I think you owe that to people because that's what they want to hear. I'm a give the people what they want kind of person.
How do you balance both jobs as voice director and voice of Moxxie for Helluva Boss?
That's an easy balance for me because I teach voiceover. In fact, Vivienne Medrano took my voice acting class
Before
I ever directed the show. We knew each other. I'd done the pilot, but she wanted to take my class. And Vivienne does voices on Helluva Boss. She's one of the cherubs, and I love directing her. I love it, and I love when she gets behind the mic. I find it very easy to go back to change hats, to switch hats, because it's just I just approach directing the way I approach teaching, and it's all about the art of playing pretend. And that's what I teach. I teach the art of playing pretend, as taught to me by my mentor, Diana Castle, who was instrumental in my life. And so that's how I approach it. It's always about, in both cases, in voiceover, Billy West said it best. Billy said, our job is to imagine a world in our imaginations and then throw it up in Technicolor on the microphone. It's a brilliant graphic depiction of what we do. You do the same thing when you're directing. You just have to create that world for the actor. You have to, you don't have to give a line reading. You just have to set the scene. Okay, so in this scene with Blitz and Stolas, which I'm the most proud of, we worked hard on those scenes. And I would say to Brandon, it's okay. The thing is that if he were to leave you, it's the first time you're aware. And I'm talking to him, and he's like, and then I go, okay, go. And we roll, and he does it. And it's beautiful. Those are my favorite scenes in Helluva Boss, when like Luna and Octavia have that scene in the Hollywood episode, and they're up on the billboard, and they're up looking over the city. It's a very heavy scene about parents and relationships and feelings of abandonment. Same thing with Blitz and Stolas, feelings of abandonment. That I can tap into. I can tap into that easily.
Is it harder to direct someone from the Broadway background versus...
No, I believe that Broadway actors are made for animation. They are made for animation. They are great because they bring things to animation that a lot of very subtle on-camera actors don't, because in film you're taught to keep things small because you're on a huge screen. So raising your eyebrows on screen looks like this, right? But the art of having to express using just your voice through sound and everything is something Broadway actors excel at, especially people like Alex Brightman, who's very cartoony as Beetlejuice, So it's not hard at all.
What animated shows are you blown away at for the style, the production, the voice acting, really?
So, like I said, I'm currently a huge fan of Death Note because the graphic novel aspect of it, some of those shots are the most beautiful things I've ever seen. They look real. I mean, they look like wow. But by far my favorite animated show of all time was Speed Racer. I'm blown away by the original Beavis and Butthead.
Why that one?
It was something new we hadn't seen at a time, and the way they would talk and do commentary on the videos just was brilliant.
If you could bring back one character for one final run, who is it and in what medium?
Well, I think I'd have to say Invader Zim, and I would have to say in TV and film, because I think there's a big film there. I think there's a huge film possibility for the Helluverse. Huge. I mean, it would be comparable to the Marvel Universe. The Helluverse would be huge because we haven't seen that. We haven't seen any kind of crossover. And so I think Invader Zim, because I think People say, well, what about Angry Beavers? What about Billy and Mandy? Yes, I would bring back any of those. The thing is that both those shows had a really nice run. Invader Zim was just like preemptively cut short. And despite what they may have tried to do with it by putting it on a shelf, it still continues to grow, year after year. I would like to see Jonan want to do it again. That would be nice.
Thank you so much for your time.
Oh, thank you. I hope I didn't wax too philosophical for too long.
No, this is incredible.
Thank you.
Seriously. Where can everybody find you?
I'm on Instagram at Richard HORVITZ VO. I'm on Twitter as, I think, Richard HORVITZ. I think.
Are you on TikTok?
I'm sorry, it's not Twitter anymore, is it? It's X. X, yeah. I am not on TikTok.
Why don't you get on?
I don't know. I feel pressure.
Okay.
I feel like pressure to be always putting stuff up.
Yeah. And what other cons do you have coming up?
Wow, this weekend I'm going to be in San Jose, GalaxyCon San Jose. Next weekend, the following weekend, I'm going to be in San Antonio with Ricky Simons at Pure Joy Toys. I'm going to be at Animate Iowa. I'm going to be in Rhode Island Comic-Con. Just keep an eye on my Instagram because that's where I usually I promote them. And I promote them very last minute. I'm really sorry about that, everyone. I'm really sorry it doesn't give you a lot of time to buy your tickets. But hopefully you're checking those websites.
Hopefully.
Yes.
Cool. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Lightweights, out. Thank you so much.
Oh, that was good. That was fun.
Can I just take a
Oh, yeah.
thumbnail with you
Yeah,
too?
of course. Yes, absolutely.